What do you think that having a proper strategy is so important? What is your opinion on it? Will, do you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick it off. So, anybody who is selling on Amazon, they need to be aware of Amazon's fair pricing policy. And pretty much what that means is that your price cannot be found anywhere else on the internet at a cheaper or lower cost.
How important it is to analyze your competition prices and how we can or how sellers can automate this whole feature. Yeah, and you can take it.
That one's for me. So in the case of the features that we offer, the main thing that we do is that we look at a whole bunch of factors, but the main three that get looked at are the buy box price, the lowest price on the listing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rich Sellers Podcast. Today, I bring on Ian with me, and today we are going to discuss about pricing strategies for Amazon sellers. Why it is so important during your product launch and post-launch. So, Ian, how is it going?
Hey, Sammy, I'm doing all right, man. Glad to be here, and happy to jump in and talk to people about pricing.
Yeah, that's great. So, Ian, before we begin and get into the content, why don't you introduce yourself to the people?
Sure. So my name's Ian. I work for a company called SellerSnap. We're an AI Amazon repricer. In terms of what we do is we work with resellers, wholesalers, retail arbitrage, online arbitrageurs in order to get the buy box at the highest possible price. In addition to some of those technologies that we offer, we also offer options in order to help for some private label and brands in order to help price items according to your competitors. And so between those different products, I should say, that's how we kind of try to bring our value through technology to Amazon sellers around the world.
That's great. So, Will has also joined with us. So, Will, how is it going?
Hey guys, hey Sammy and Ian, excited to be here. Talk a little bit about pricing strategies, and I'm a fan of Seller Steps. So happy to see you on here, Ian.
Yeah. So, Will, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience a little bit?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Will Haire. I'm the CEO and founder of BellaVix, and BellaVix is a marketplace marketing agency. We help brands scale on platforms like Amazon, Walmart, and Target. And specifically, we're here today to discuss pricing. What's great is we got the reseller side from Ian and his perspective on helping deal with pricing. And on my end, we deal with a lot of brands. So how do brands handle price erosion? How do they make sure that they have healthy margins, and how do they enforce policies when they're dealing with resellers, wholesalers, or other partners? So super excited to be here, Sammy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, same here. I think today's topic is exciting one because in the space when you talk about pricing strategies, there's a lot of things going on because when it comes to launch, the prices are lower, but post-launch, the prices tends to increase a little bit, and there is a constant interval of time that when they should increase. But what we also seen is there's with a lot of Chinese seller jumping in right now, and a lot of competition have also increased in certain niches, right? But still, there are a lot of niche which is still really good to enter. But when you talk about the strategies, we see a lot of sellers do not come with a proper strategy in their mind. They just go along the way, whatever happens. What do you think that having a proper strategy is so important? What is your opinion on it? Will, do you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick it off. So anybody who is selling on Amazon, they need to be aware of Amazon's fair pricing policy. And pretty much what that means is that your price cannot be found anywhere else on the internet at a cheaper or lower cost. Otherwise, it'll affect things like buy box. Your listing will end up suppressed, and you'll have tons and tons of headaches. So when we work with brands, one of the first things we like to discuss, especially if we catch them early enough where they're considering distribution to wholesale, the pricing strategy comes down to your MAP policy. So we ask that you include contingencies inside of your policies that say who can sell these products, where they can sell these products, how these products will be monitored, and what are the punishments for violation. And that's really key because your pricing strategy, your ability to enforce and control pricing on your products is only as strong as your MAP policy. So it really starts there. By the time it gets to us on the marketplaces, we are dealing with the consequences, and it can be a nightmare. So with that being said, when we consider pricing policy, it starts at MAP policy and MAP policy enforcement.
Yeah. Ian, do you want to add something?
No, I think that Will covered a lot there, and when just kind of adding on to MAP or
Mhm.
minimum advertised price. Um, when we're talking about for resellers, that is something that is wildly important for that relationship between these resellers and their distributors, who I'm guessing is some of like Bellavix's clients there. And when we're talking about resellers, it's really important that that communication channel is open with those wholesalers that you have, because depending on the different products that you sell, if you're selling a seasonal good or a food item, you might be able to have that conversation with those distributors about how you can handle MAP and those pricings, especially if you have something that's going to expire. So just my 2 cents about that is continue that business relationship and have that open line of communication, so you're able to make intelligent pricing decisions about for each one of your listings, but also keep that business relationship open and growing in that way as well.
Yeah, I think that was spot on. So, Ian, when we talk about reseller, what kind of price difference we look at when you compete with other competition? I mean, how should we structure our pricing?
I mean, bottom when we're talking about how we structure our pricing, that is a business decision that varies from
Mhm.
seller to seller, right? Because at Seller Snap, we work with sellers of all sizes. I'm talking about mom and pop running it out of their garage to 6 7 figure sellers who are running giant e-commerce corporations primarily through marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart, and then the trickle down into everything else, and as well
Mhm.
onto the other marketplaces as well. And I think that it's important to find the right strategy for yourself based on all the different factors about where you source the product from, how much you source it from, what kind of competition you have on the listing. So it's really easy to come out and say, oh, this is the strategy you should use, but when it comes down to the practical side, it shouldn't. But some of the things that you should look at are the your cost of goods sold, your costs. What are you purchasing it for? What does it cost to get it into Amazon or into one of your other marketplaces? What does it cost to fulfill? And then that's those are kind of baseline. That doesn't take into account all these kind of like fringe costs that are a bit harder to quantify, like the cost of your warehouse and your employee and the secretary and the Doritos and the water bottles you feed your staff, right? And so these are all things that you have to take into account and understand, in a bigger picture, like how much does it cost me to fulfill this chunk of items? What kind of margin am I looking for to maintain my business and to maintain, an, a spend that makes sense and also makes money. And so once you kind of understand that, then you can create those kinds of min and max ranges, as we call it, from the repricing standpoint, in order to say, all right, repricer, go on and get me the buy box so we can capture those sales. But again, then you'll still have to take into account all these other things like Will spoke about with the MAP prices, so you don't make anybody mad on the distribution side, and you kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I think that was great. So I think that was reseller point of view. Obviously, when you talk about brands, I think Will, you would agree with me in this point, because when you talk about a product launch, we know how much a price or the pricing of a product can influence the CTR of your ads, and that in terms can influence your cost of advertising. Because where you're positioning, if you're positioning at a place where other competitors are much more cheaper than you and you are there positioning yourself at much more higher price point, obviously your CTR is going to go down. So when you talk about launch price in terms of looking at a brand perspective, what do you think? How much should we lower down our price at the initial launch phase? Let's assume our break-even point is $9. Okay, and other sellers are selling at, let's assume, $19. Okay, so that is just a general point of view. What do you think our launch pricing strategy should be?
Yeah, great question. It really varies. So if we're talking about a launch, and it depends also the shopper's perspective. If it's something where the customers or the shoppers are brand agnostic, a garlic press, the lemon squeezer. Like you guys, anybody's listened to any videos, you understand that you're really competing on pricing and a unique selling proposition about your product. If that's the case and that's a launch product, you want to be as close to break even, if not less, over a 3 to 6 month period, understanding that I'm building the quality of my listing. I'm teaching Amazon's algorithm what keywords I actually convert for. I'm taking advantage of programs like Vine and features like Request a Review on the Seller Central platform in order to get my listing to a point where I can incrementally increase pricing. We're a big fan of leveraging coupons or even just regular discounts so they could see this is a $25 product, but it's on sale for $15 because the perceived value of that product is a lot more because they're like, oh, great, I'm getting a deal. Now, if you're a luxury brand, if you're selling something that is truly unique, you don't necessarily have to compete on pricing. You can take advantage of some of these programs and then take advantage of email marketing. And then we would implement something like a conquesting strategy. So it'd be less about, like, if you sold a mattress and your mattress, no matter what, you sell $1,000 mattress. Well, we know a queen size mattress that median price is $200. Like, there's no way that you're going to get your product to that price point. So the strategy is a bit different. Then it's a conquesting type strategy and it's awareness type strategy. So the road to growth and profitability is a lot longer, and it looks more like a top down approach. So we're generating awareness, likely leveraging demand side platform or DSP programmatic ads to build audience and segments of customers who will spend $800, $1,000 on your mattress. And then we're also hyper targeted on our ads, going after brands that are similar price point in that category. So you don't necessarily have to race to the bottom, but it does come down to like you understanding your shoppers, you understanding your shoppers' journey, and you knowing your product's position in the market to best leverage that. Obviously, if you can offer a lower price and get more competitive within the other sellers on the market, that's going to make things a lot faster. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's the way you have to do it for your brand.
Yeah, completely agree with you on this. Especially what we have seen with the brands that we are handling is, I mean, you have talked spot on about the coupons, right? So that really drives the CTR a lot, what we have seen. So, Ian, do you have something to add on this?
Not so much when it comes to the branded space. It's not necessarily my area of expertise. But one of the things that I can say that one of the tools that we offer has to do with like following the different ASINs that you might be competing against with. And so if your strategy is competing based off of price, there are ways to automate that and understand, the top competitors for that garlic press, for example, and say, these are top competitors 1, 2, and 3. And you can understand what those prices are and say, I want to be an average of these pricing of these competitors. I want to beat these competitors on price or kind of live in that zone. And so I would say that for anyone that's like trying to price, your branded goods is once you understand your strategy, try to find automations that will allow you to tackle it over a longer period of time, so you can get back to the things that require good old fashioned elbow grease.
Yeah, I think that was what we need to go a little bit deep into, I think. So, how important it is to analyze your competition prices and how sellers can automate this whole feature. Yeah, and you can take.
That one's for me. So
Yeah.
in the case of the features that we offer, the main thing that we do is that we look at a whole bunch of factors, but the main 3 that get looked at are the buy box price, the lowest price on the listing, and the sales rank. And so then what you can do is you can build out rules, and you can say, here are my 10 garlic presses. I want you to look, and then you have to build out your rules. You tell the repricer, I want you to look at the best sales rank and look at that price, and I want you to beat that price by $1. I want you to beat that price by 5% or whatever it is. And then from there, you would take that same kind of approach and you would apply it to each one of your listings. And over time, you'll start to understand, okay, I get higher velocity when I'm beating them on price. Sometimes we see sellers that are actually, when you're priced a little bit higher than the lowest one, you get better conversions. And this is all, the psychology around, the psychology around pricing. Me personally, I rarely go, as much as I like a deal, I rarely go for the cheapest item because I don't want the cheapest product. I don't want something that's going to break on me last week. So I think what Will really hit the nail on the head. It's about really understanding where your product fits into, all the different, all the similar products on the marketplace, and truly understanding, your audience, the persona of the buyer who's going to be buying that product, and then pricing accordingly. And again, not the expert in how to price, and there's a tons of companies and solutions out there that do that, and I'm sure that Will has a bit to add on that for me.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll add on that. So Ian, I like how you brought up the repricing strategy based on inventory and market competition. We actually had a product that was relatively generic. It was a crock or utensil holder, and we used a repricer tool. And what we found, we were like the top 5 selling product in that specific category. And when one specific brand who priced a lot cheaper ran out of stock, we saw a spike in sales, and then we were able to raise our price and maximize our return, and it made it easier for advertising investment and all that other stuff. So leveraging, even as a brand, like there is a world where repricing makes sense. Also for us, we have brands that, although we recommend enforcing your MAP policy and having these pieces in place and working with the legal group, it's hard to enforce. And a scenario is like, we have a beauty company who sells wholesale, but wholesale is the bulk of their business. Amazon is like number 3 on that list. So while we tell them to push back, like they don't want to push back too hard because they've established these relationships that really drive the business. And so what's nice about softwares like Seller App is we're able to set a minimum and a max, and we're able to go, okay, fine, we know that we're making money up to this point. So the system does it automatically, which is great. So we just get these reports. It's constantly like making the prices go up and down. And then as resellers phase out of their inventory, we get it back. There's some other headaches on the other end, like contribution rights on the listing and all that other stuff. But from just because they have brand equity and from a profitability standpoint, at least we're able to implement advertising strategies, make sure the listings are a good representation of the brand, and that we are moving products through, in this case, it's the vendor account. So we're moving products through Vendor Central to make sure we get more purchase orders and make this brand more money.
Yeah, I think that was a great point Will shared. So Will, you talked about launch pricing, right? But one question we get a lot is about when should we increase our prices, and when we are increasing our prices, what are the things or factors that we need to consider before we go and jump and increase the price?
Yeah, beautiful. A big one that sticks out, and I don't know the ratio, you have to forgive me, I'd have to look it up, but it is in Amazon's terms of service. You can't like jump your price up 100%. Like it's price gouging, and Amazon will shut your listing down and potentially your account down. So if you're selling something like a face mask during the pandemic and you notice that there's not a lot of stock, so you jumped your pricing up, you may have gotten caught by this. Outside of that, it's always incremental, to be honest with you. That's why, like for us, if you leverage some type of discount approach to start, like you use the coupons or you use just a traditional, what retail price versus the actual sales price, you can just remove that, and that'll jump your pricing up. And then generally recommend over the course of 2 to 4 weeks, incrementally work your price up, 5 to 10% or a couple dollars at a time, depending on how expensive your item is. And the goal is just to monitor, because Ian, you brought this up, and this is right on. It's like there is a sweet spot. Like if you have flexibility in pricing, there'll be a point where you raise your price and there's diminishing returns, and it makes sense to maybe have it $1 or $2 cheaper and just keep that healthy sales velocity going because of the halo effect, the benefits of having a listing that moves through product and helping you rank organically. At the end of the day, if it's a launch product and you need to get it X amount, you have to do what you have to do. But I would urge you to be careful, do it incrementally, and make sure you're monitoring and recording. We like to do everything like 2 to 4 week increments because it's enough time to gather the proper amount of data. Generally, Amazon's algorithm is like 4 to 6 weeks really for things to reindex and things to get healthier again. So just keep those aspects in mind as you're raising prices and getting maybe less competitive, but getting to a price point where it's more profitable for your business.
Yeah, I think that was great. I think Ian would have some interesting things to share on it. Ian, when you talk about reselling point of view, so what metric does seller snap look at to increase their price, or what is the indicator this is the right time to increase our price or decrease our price to gain more sales velocity?
So when we're talking about sales velocity, especially in the repricing space, it's less of a concern about it because because you're picking up brands that typically already have a customer base and have a
Mhm.
following, the customers are already kind of built in, and so you are competing on price. You are competing on price rather than like the features and the
Yeah.
added value of your own personal brand. And so because of that, what SellerSnap does is we're not focused so much on sales velocity, but more importantly of getting the buy box, right? Because if because like the logic says that if I'm in the buy box, I will capture the sales for the most part. And so the way that we will raise price is by looking at how our competitors react to our price changes. So if I move up in price, is my competitor using rule where they move up with me? If I move down, do they undercut me, and how do they react? And from there, we have these test cases, we have these, and we track that pattern, and we understand if I'm and then we decide, okay, it's time to move up in price. We wait for that competitor to move up with me, and then we'll re-engage, undercut them undercut us until we think that the price gets too low, and we'll kind of restart that cycle. And so our idea is to really get the buy box at the highest possible price. Um, but when we're talking about moving pricing up, some of the things that I wanted to kind of touch on that Will had touched on earlier in the chat, and then also now in terms of like the fair pricing policy is understanding kind of the different price points in terms of um, suspension, suppression, and deactivation are two
Mhm.
factors that we really take into consideration when we're raising price. Because whether you're talking about an item that you're reselling or a private label brand or your own brand, these are things. That suppression price and the deactivation price are two things that you have to keep an eye on because especially with the deactivated price, if that listing goes down and you're not on the listing, you can't sell, you can't make money. And so being able to use a system like SellerSnap or again any of these other systems out there that can identify that what we call internally as the inactive threshold price, which is the price that the highest price that we can be at without getting deactivated, is something that's super important in making sure that you maintain healthy listings, you don't get deactivated, and that all your internal, Amazon seller scores don't get hurt by us trying to make more money per sale. Because as Will mentioned before, there is that price point where it just like doesn't matter if you raise it up by $1 because if you're selling less items, your bottom line gets hurt at the end of the day.
So it's like putting a limit, like this is the top limit and this is the bottom limit, and we cannot go beyond that, right?
Yeah, it's so you have that top and that bottom limit, but in terms of the top limit, it's really easy to say like I don't really need a top limit because sell it as much as I want
Yeah.
for like as much as you can sell it for. But at the end of the day, if you raise that price too much, and this is for both again for both brands and for resales, if you raise it too much, Amazon flags it because on other marketplaces like Walmart and Newegg and whatever, the prices are lower, then that's going to hurt you at the end of the day because Amazon wants to be the most customer centric business on the planet by providing the best price and the best service in terms of like FBA customer service calling in, and so if they can't provide it, they will actively steer those customers away from you. And so that's something that we need to keep in mind, that at the end of the day, Amazon is a marketplace and you are a vendor within that market. You're a seller within that marketplace, and you need to play by their rules. And so one of the things that Will, and I wrote this down here, Will, because I've had plenty of conversations about this in the past with all kinds of people talking about pricing and consulting within the Amazon space, is that moving that price up incrementally is the key to avoid some of these things, because but the one of the things you really have to think about is moving it up incrementally, but also ensuring that you're getting sales at those prices that you're selling. Because I've had conversations with sellers that haven't sold an item in 2 weeks, but like their strategy is to move up the price every 2 weeks or whatever it is by 5%. And then that hurts them because they didn't actually make the sale at that lower price. And so Amazon flags that. But if Amazon's seeing that you're consistently making sales at a price point, then you're kind of at a point where you can start to push it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was quite spot on. So, guys, I think we are already close to 25 minutes. So, before we finish this podcast, Will, where can people find you?
Awesome. Yeah. So check me out on LinkedIn, Will Haire, like on your head with an E. We have a newsletter we push out to all sellers on updates on the back end. So feel free to check out our website, subscribe to our newsletter. And we just launched a podcast, Selling on Giants. So if you're interested in learning more sales tactics as a brand and you want to know how to sell, we've had some great guests on and excited. So check us out in all those places. And thanks for having me on. This has been really insightful and great to meet Ian. I follow your guys' blog, so it was great to actually hear you were on here. I was pretty excited.
Yeah, Ian, where can people find you?
I'm also on LinkedIn, and anytime that you reach out to SellerSnap at sellersnap.io, we see those communications across our different departments. And then, Facebook and Twitter as well are great ways to interact with our team. I'm also on there as well, trying to respond where I can. And like this was a really fun, quick 30 minutes that we got to spend together. And I love this dynamic of having kind of the reselling side and the brand side, because I think that more and more what we're seeing is that sellers are not putting all their eggs in one basket and kind of having this hybrid approach. So having being able to attack it from all sides within 25 minutes, I think it was super super fun and exciting thing to do.
Heck yeah, thanks
Yeah.
Sammy for putting it together, man.
Thank you so much, guys. I think it was an awesome discussion. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, thanks, Sammy.